Picture a small diner on an ordinary day. People eating, talking, minding their own business. At one table sits a disabled girl, quietly enjoying her meal. Then the laughter starts, cruel words follow. And suddenly a slap echoes through the room. Everyone sees it. No one moves. An hour later, the door opens again. Leather jackets, heavy boots, bikers walk in, and in that moment, everything changes. Bullying does not continue because bullies are fearless or powerful. It continues because silence creates a safe space for cruelty to grow. In most cases, bullying does not happen in secret. It unfolds in front of others, classmates, co-workers, strangers, or passers-by, who see what is happening but choose not to react. This silence, whether intentional or not, becomes a form of permission. It tells the bully that their behavior will go unchallenged and that there will be no consequences for their actions. Silence often comes from fear. People are afraid of drawing attention to themselves, becoming targets, or making the situation worse. Others convince themselves that it is not their responsibility or that someone else will intervene. However, when everyone waits for someone else to act, no one does. The bully gains confidence with every moment of inaction, while the victim becomes increasingly isolated. The absence of support can be as damaging as the bullying itself, leaving the victim feeling invisible, powerless, and abandoned. For individuals with disabilities, silence can be even more harmful. Bullies often assume that disabled people are easier targets, less likely to fight back, and less likely to be defended. When bystanders say nothing, these assumptions are reinforced. The message sent is clear and painful, that their suffering is not important enough to interrupt comfort or routine. This deepens emotional wounds and can lead to long-lasting effects on self-esteem, mental health, and trust in others. Silence also shapes the culture of a space. When bullying is ignored, it becomes normalized, cruelty turns into entertainment, and empathy fades into the background. Over time, people stop seeing bullying as unacceptable and begin to see it as just the way things are. This creates an environment where fear controls behavior and compassion is suppressed. Breaking silence does not always require confrontation or aggression. It can begin with simple actions, acknowledging the victim, offering support, speaking up, or involving others who can help. Even small acts can disrupt the dynamic of bullying and remind everyone present that abuse is not tolerated. When one person breaks the silence, it often empowers others to follow, shifting the power away from the bully and back toward humanity and respect. Disability is often misunderstood as a limitation, a sign of fragility, or a lack of capability. Society tends to equate strength with physical ability or independence, but this is a narrow and misleading definition. A disability may change the way someone moves, communicates, or interacts with the world, but it does not diminish their courage, intelligence, or worth. In fact, living in a world that is often inaccessible or unaccommodating requires incredible resilience, patience, and determination, qualities that define true strength. Bullies often target individuals with disabilities because they assume vulnerability equates to weakness. They believe that someone who looks or behaves differently is an easy target, someone unlikely to defend themselves or receive support. This assumption is both cruel and false. People with disabilities demonstrate immense strength every day simply by navigating environments that are not designed for them, advocating for their rights, and asserting their presence in spaces where they are too often marginalized. Strength is not measured by physical dominance or aggression. It is measured by perseverance, dignity, and the ability to face adversity without losing hope. Bullying a disabled person sends more than a physical message. It communicates societal judgment, reinforcing negative stereotypes and undermining the victim's self-worth. It makes the person feel isolated, undervalued, and powerless. The emotional impact of this treatment can be profound, sometimes leading to fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. Yet, recognizing that disability does not equal weakness challenges these harmful narratives and restores dignity. It is a reminder that vulnerability is not synonymous with incompetence, and that differences do not reduce value. Society's understanding of disability shapes the treatment of disabled individuals. When we view disability through the lens of capability and humanity rather than limitation, we begin to dismantle the stereotypes that embolden bullies. Respecting people with disabilities means acknowledging their autonomy, listening to their voices, and providing support without pity or condescension. It also means creating spaces where everyone, regardless of physical or mental ability, feels safe, valued, and empowered. When we stop associating disability with weakness, we not only affirm the strength of those living with disabilities, but also send a broader message. Cruelty is never justified, assumptions are never harmless, and empathy and inclusion are measures of true societal strength. In doing so, we shift the power dynamic away from the bully and toward justice, understanding, and respect. Strength is often misunderstood. Society frequently portrays it as the ability to dominate, intimidate, or overpower others. Movies, media, and even some cultural norms glorify physical power or aggression as the ultimate form of strength. But real strength is not about fear or dominance. It is about responsibility, courage, and the willingness to protect those who cannot defend themselves. True strength is measured by the actions we take to uphold justice, dignity, and compassion, not by the force we can exert. In situations of bullying, this distinction becomes incredibly important. Many assume that standing up to a bully requires matching aggression with aggression. In reality, responding with violence often escalates the situation, creating danger for both the victim and the defender. Protecting someone does not mean attacking the bully. It means recognizing the imbalance of power and finding a way to restore safety and respect without causing additional harm. Presence, words, and moral authority can be far more powerful than fists. The bikers in the diner exemplify this truth. When they walked in, they were strong, not because they were intimidating, but because they were deliberate, calm, and committed to protection. They did not need to lash out to make the bullies leave. Their strength came from their ability to stand beside the victim, assert moral authority, and make it clear that bullying would not be tolerated. This is the kind of strength that changes environments and shifts power from fear to accountability. True protectors understand that the goal is not revenge. Their role is to ensure the victim feels safe, valued, and supported while holding the bully accountable in a way that prevents further harm. This requires emotional control, empathy, and courage, qualities that are far more difficult to cultivate than brute force. Protectors demonstrate that authority and strength are not synonymous with aggression. Moreover, protection sets an example for others. When people witness someone standing up to injustice without resorting to violence, they learn that conflict can be resolved through courage, integrity, and presence. Protection restores balance, empowers victims, and challenges the bully's false sense of power. True strength, therefore, is not measured by what you can destroy, it is measured by what you can safeguard, dignity, respect, and the safety of those who need it most. Bystanders are often the silent force in situations of bullying, and their role is far more powerful than most people realize. When bullying occurs, the people who witness it are not merely passive observers. They influence the entire dynamic. Their choices, reactions, and even inaction can either empower the bully or protect the victim. Yet, many bystanders underestimate the impact of their presence, believing that because they are not directly involved, their actions, or silence, don't matter. This is a misconception. Every bystander holds the potential to change the course of events. Silence, in particular, can embolden the bully. When no one speaks up, the abuser interprets this as tacit approval. The absence of intervention reassures them that their actions are tolerated and may even encourage them to escalate their behavior. Meanwhile, the victim experiences not only the direct cruelty of the bully, but also the painful isolation of being ignored. Witnessing others remain passive reinforces feelings of helplessness and invisibility, deepening the emotional and psychological harm. However, bystanders also have the power to stop this cycle. Even small, thoughtful actions can disrupt bullying and provide meaningful support to the victim. Standing beside the person being targeted, using words to call out inappropriate behavior, or seeking help from an authority figure are all ways to assert moral presence and break the bully's sense of control. Sometimes the simple act of making eye contact with the victim or offering silent solidarity is enough to shift the energy in the room. The influence of bystanders extends beyond immediate intervention. Their choices help shape the culture of a community or space. When people consistently refuse to tolerate cruelty, they create environments where bullying loses its audience and becomes socially unacceptable. Conversely, when silence prevails, it normalizes cruelty and signals that fear and dominance are acceptable ways to behave. Bystanders, therefore, carry enormous responsibility and equally enormous power. Their actions or inactions determine whether a victim feels isolated or supported, whether a bully feels empowered or challenged, and whether a community fosters fear or safety. Recognizing this power is the first step. Choosing to act, to speak up, or to stand alongside someone in need transforms ordinary individuals into protectors, making compassion, courage, and justice visible in moments when they matter most. Safety is rarely created by a single individual acting alone. It is built through the strength and unity of a community. A community is more than just a collection of people in the same space. It is a network of support, shared values, and collective responsibility. When members of a community stand together to uphold respect, kindness, and justice, they create environments where bullying and cruelty cannot thrive. Conversely, when people act only for themselves and ignore the suffering of others, fear and isolation dominate, allowing bullies to feel empowered. Bullies often rely on the absence of community support to continue their behavior. They target those who appear isolated, vulnerable, or unlikely to receive help. In spaces where people remain disconnected or indifferent, the victim is left alone, and the bully feels untouchable. However, a connected community changes this dynamic. When individuals are aware of each other, care for each other, and act collectively, cruelty becomes difficult to carry out without consequence. The presence of even a few supportive individuals can shift power away from the bully and toward the victim. For vulnerable individuals, including those with disabilities, the presence of a supportive community can be life-changing. Feeling safe in public spaces, knowing there are people who will step in, and experiencing consistent care and inclusion provides emotional security and helps counteract the effects of bullying. This support is not always dramatic or confrontational. It can be small acts of kindness, acknowledgement, inclusion, or simply being present. These gestures signal to both the victim and the bully that there are standards of behavior and that mistreatment will not go unnoticed. Community also plays a preventive role. When people collectively reject cruelty, they create social norms that discourage bullying before it even begins. By fostering compassion, accountability, and respect, communities make it clear that harming others will never be tolerated. This strengthens social cohesion, empowers vulnerable individuals, and ensures that no one has to face abuse alone. Ultimately, the power of community lies in its ability to transform fear into safety. When people unite, they create spaces where dignity is protected, empathy is cultivated, and every individual feels seen and valued. In such environments, bullies find no ground to operate, and victims find not only protection, but also the reassurance that they are never truly alone. Being a protector is not limited to people with physical strength, authority, or special skills. Protection begins with a choice, a decision to care enough to act when someone else is being hurt. Every individual, regardless of age, status, or ability, has the potential to make a difference in moments of injustice. The most ordinary actions, speaking up, offering support, or simply standing beside someone who is being targeted, can have extraordinary effects. Many people feel powerless when they witness bullying, especially if the bully seems confident, aggressive, or intimidating. They think that intervention requires confrontation, physical force, or authority. This is a misconception. Protection does not always involve direct conflict. It can be subtle but meaningful. Listening to the victim, reporting the incident to someone who can help, or creating a safe space for the person being targeted are all ways to act without escalating the situation. Even small gestures, like making eye contact, offering reassurance, or sitting nearby, can provide the victim with a sense of safety and reduce the bully's influence. Being a protector also involves moral courage. It requires stepping out of comfort zones, challenging social pressure, and refusing to remain silent when someone is suffering. Protectors demonstrate empathy and integrity, signaling to both victims and bullies that cruelty is unacceptable. They show that strength is not about domination, but about responsibility, the responsibility to stand up for others and defend dignity. Moreover, being a protector has a ripple effect. When one person acts, it often inspires others to do the same. Communities, schools, and workplaces can be transformed when individuals recognize their ability to influence outcomes. Protection becomes a shared value rather than an isolated act, reinforcing safety and empathy as the norm. Ultimately, everyone has the capacity to protect. Heroism is not measured by recognition, power, or physical ability. It is measured by the willingness to act when it matters most. Ordinary people, when they choose to step forward, can create extraordinary change. By choosing to protect others, we uphold the values of justice, compassion, and humanity, proving that courage and empathy are stronger than fear and cruelty. So, when we hear stories like this, it's not just about the bullies or the bikers, it's about the choices each of us makes. Every day we face moments where someone is hurt, humiliated, or left alone. In those moments we decide who we are. Will we look away or will we step in? Will we allow fear and silence to give power to cruelty? Or will we use courage and compassion to protect those who need it most? Because the truth is, you don't need to be big, strong, or famous to make a difference. You just need to care. You just need to act. And sometimes all it takes is one person to stand up, speak out, or walk in changing everything for the better. If you want, I can also combine everything into a full 5-7-minute speech with the hook, all 6 points expanded, and this ending, ready to deliver. It would flow naturally and be very powerful. Do you want me to do that?